Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries Convention Chair, Kendi Nee.
Good morning and welcome to Vancouver. Come on, let's get it there. There we go. I like it a lot better that way. Hey, 4 things are needed to put on a successful convention. We need attendees, we need exhibitors, we need some meaningful education, and last but not least, we need sponsors. RecycleGuard serves our members in the scrap recycling industry with insurance protection and sponsors our session this morning. Please take a look at the screens.
RecycleGuard emerged 19 years ago as the insurance alternative for the recycling industry. Today, RecycleGuard is the undisputed market leader. Insuring recyclers is all we do. It's our passion. Other insurance options come and go. RecycleGuard remains. We understand your industry. We are your partner in asset protection. We are your partner in success.
So what do we owe our sponsors at an ISRI convention? We certainly owe them our thanks. And although we are not required to use their product, we should certainly give them the opportunity to quote on our insurance needs. Please stop by booth 1127 to see the professionals at RecycleGuard this week. Despite what certainly isn't the best year in our industry, this year's sponsorship exceeds last year's totals. We've attracted more than 260 companies to come show you their equipment and their services. They are here because year after year, the ISRI annual convention attracts the global leaders in the scrap recycling industry. This week, the best and the brightest of our industry are here, and we are the largest scrap recycling industry exposition in the world. The annual ISRI convention is the meeting that we, the true leaders, must attend. And this week, we have leaders from the United States, Canada, and dozens of countries here in testament to that. So this week, we're going to have a world-class show in a world-class facility in a world-class city. And I hope you all take time to enjoy it. As usual, there are a few things that I have to cover that will help make sure that you have a better show. Number 1, if you haven't found it by now, ISRI has provided Wi-Fi access for you throughout the building. Just point your cell phones and tablets to the ISRI2015 wireless signal and you're good to go. No password is required. Number 2, if you have an Apple or Android phone, take time once you've been on the ISRI 2015 Wi-Fi network to download our ISRI app from the Apple Store or the Google Play. This new app is more than just a convention app. It's your tool that will put the ISRI directory and ISRI specifications at your fingertips. For this week, you can access the schedule, handouts and workshops, exhibit hall maps, and much more without even logging in. You can learn more about the app at the ISRI booth this week. Number 3, remember to wear your badge at all events, including the final night. Your badge is your security credential. Replacing a lost badge is intentionally very expensive, so don't lose your badge. Number 4, if you don't have a photo on your badge, please carry photo identification with you. You'll need to show the photo ID at several events during this week. Number 5, be mindful of the no solicitation zones that have been set up near the doorways to the exhibit halls and in other hallways. We hope that by making these areas off limits to solicitations, we can improve flows and eliminate access to our attendees by those who don't play by the rules. Number 6, take time. Take time to see our exhibitors, to be at the other general sessions, and to take in some workshops this week. Return on investment can be found on every corner of this convention if you look for it. We've sure done our best to try to bring it anyway. Number 7, there's a bit of local history that will be of interest to all of us. The Jewish Museum of British Columbia has dedicated their latest issue of their magazine to the history of the scrap metal industry in British Columbia. It includes interviews with 19 families who have been in the business. Copies of this production are available for purchase today and tomorrow morning at the Just for Fun desk at registration. Stop by and take a look. Finally, have a great time this week. If you have any questions or need any help, see somebody from ISRI staff or the folks who are wearing the convention committee ribbons. They can either help or find someone else who can. As you know, this is ISRI's first venture outside of the United States. For a convention, we appreciate the help and hospitality we receive from our neighbors to the north. Please welcome the chair of the Canadian Recycling Association, Adam Chiswick. Adam.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ISRI's first convention in Canada. As the chair of CARI, the Canadian Association of Recycling Industries, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to what will no doubt be a successful and exciting conference. Over CARI's 74 years of existence, CARI and ISRI have had a long relationship of cooperation and mutual understanding. We've had the pleasure of attending many ISRI conventions, and we have been honored by the attendance of many from ISRI at our respective conferences and events. This relationship is more than just one of friendship. It is a recognition of the international reality of the trade in scrap recyclables. As this is the first time ISRI has held its event outside of the United States, it is important to stress the international opportunities this event is providing. Vancouver is the fourth largest tonnage port in North America. The nature of the North American market makes our relationship a natural one, with so much trade going on each and every day over our respective borders. Canada and the United States trade more than $2 billion in goods and services daily. Unsurprisingly, the United States is Canada's most important trade partner. This annual event is a significant one. It is an opportunity I hope you all take advantage of to learn, network, and grow your businesses. Once again, thank you all for coming. We're greatly honored by ISRI's presence in Canada. Please enjoy your stay in Vancouver. Thank you.
Engage global partners. Experience a world of recycling knowledge. Examine the dimensions of today's marketplace, environmental and safety challenges. Explore the wide horizon of tomorrow's promising opportunities and effective solutions. Encounter ISRI, the voice of the recycling industry. For over a century, the scrap recycling industry has been a critical player in the nation's economic growth, the conservation of our natural resources, and the preservation of our environment. ISRI has been a reliable and effective partner for recyclers everywhere, providing world-class safety training programs and products, environmental guidance, and powerful advocacy for the success of industry at home and abroad. Welcome to Vancouver and the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries 2015 Annual Convention and Exposition. Here you'll encounter the world's largest scrap recycling expo. Build new global partnerships. Explore the latest technology, equipment, and best practices in recycling. You'll encounter ISRI. Examine today's market trends. Discover the latest innovations in equipment and services. Explore dozens of workshop sessions where you'll expand your knowledge of safe and environmentally sound recycling and gain insights about the future of the industry. Learn techniques to help you improve your business today and prepare for the opportunities of tomorrow. Engage scrap industry professionals from across the continent and around the world. Experience the ISRI 2015 Convention and Exposition. Encounter ISRI, the voice of the recycling industry. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ISRI's chair, Doug Kramer.
Good morning, and thanks for being here in Vancouver for what I expect will be one of the best and most useful general sessions in the history of ISRI. Today, our speaker is going to be talking about tough times. And given the last few months in this industry, who could possibly know more about tough times than the people in this room? In the last 20 years, we've been at nearly every point you can find on the economic and political mountain. We've seen markets that dry up for days, for years, We've seen markets that come online and spin the commodity markets up to unimaginable places, creating the equivalent of a gold rush in paper, plastics, and metals. We've seen years where the regulatory challenges put in front of us by local, state, and federal governments would push us to the brink. And were it up to us individually to fight them, they probably would have succeeded. We've had our share of tough times, and not everyone has made it through. Most of us did, though, and we did it in part because of one particular action we all took. We showed up. We showed up as business owners looking to survive, as a trade association looking for the best interests of our industry, and as an industry seeking to improve our world. And we made a difference. When tough economic times hit, you find the survivors are the ones who did not throw up walls and hunker down to weather the storm. The survivors are the ones who show up to an ISRI meeting or a convention like this one, seeking information, talking to colleagues outside of your marketplace, making new friends, and meeting new customers. They are the ones who sought out new machinery and technology to make a product for their customers that was cleaner and more efficient for their operations. When China chose to implement new regulations to ship scrap commodities, we worked to develop a new and stronger trade relationship. When metal theft sent governments large and small into a frenzy of legislative actions that could have effectively shut down our industry without affecting the real problem, we showed that we are a valuable and responsible part of our communities. And we continue to help fight that battle today. Almost 4 years ago, the U.S. EPA proposed expanding the definition of solid waste and hazardous waste to include scrap metal that would have put a costly burden on all of us. These regulations would have impacted each and every transaction, each and every day, at each and every scrapyard in the country. Then ISRI showed up. The volunteer members of ISRI's board understood the size of this threat. They authorized opening the coffers and directed that we fight this battle by all means necessary. Staff and a team of members worked aggressively on Capitol Hill, the White House, and EPA. We used the goodwill and the connections that we have made over the years to make sure decision makers understood our industry and our needs. And I'm proud to report that we won. While other industries are filing lawsuits, While other industries are filing lawsuits against the EPA, Robin is writing a thank you letter to the EPA Assistant Administrator. And a huge thank you goes to the staff and the members who spearheaded our efforts. Joel Denbo, Shelley Padnos, John Sacco, Chris Bedell, Scott Miller, Jaron Brom, John Hayworth, Jerry Sims, Jason Young, Mark Lewin, Scott Horn, Mark Ryder, David Wagger, Billy Johnson, and of course, Robin Weiner. Thank you. This is what ISRI does for our members. This is what ISRI was made for. Weathering the tough times of this business is simply not something you do by yourself. ISRI is a trade association. It's not staff making decisions for our industry. It's made up of members in this industry who work together for the greater good. How many of you remember the last time we saw a protracted down cycle in this industry? I'm not talking about 2008. I'm talking about 2000, 2001, when we never knew if or when the markets would hit bottom. And then we worried about how long the markets would stay there. It sounds familiar. We survived that time by working together. We survived not by closing in, but by opening up, taking time to improve our business, taking time to improve our industry, and to substantially improve our trade association to make it more adaptive, more receptive, and better prepared to meet our needs today. Thankfully, ISRI and our industry are much stronger today than we were 15 years ago. That's good because the world we face today is much bigger than it was then. Regulators are far more ready to act without an understanding of what we do. Our challenges and our issues aren't just restricted to the traditional trade boundaries of domestic markets. Today, we have to have a global perspective. We have to recognize that no matter how large or how small our operations, or whether our best customer is across the street or across an ocean, all of us are trading in a global marketplace that none of us, big or small, is prepared to cover on our own. We have new regulatory challenges in every jurisdiction that none can manage alone, but together we can make a difference. Today, ISRI is better equipped to serve us because we made it that way. After the Superfund fight of the late 90s, we made the decision to build our reserves, and now we're better able to withstand tough times. We made decisions and established priorities to create the resources our members needed and demanded: Superfund protection, safety services, education and training, state and federal advocacy assistance, and so much more. We've provided more and better communications tools, created school curriculum that not only helps us to be a better part of our communities today, but also helps better educate our children to understand our industry, and that will better help us withstand the tough times in the future. We've provided our members with tools they can use when they interact with opinion leaders, with neighbors, and with others in the industry, including a jobs map on our website that shows the awesome economic impact our industry has on our cities, our state, and on our nation. So, we've got all these member services that we asked for, that we demanded. All of them are free or close to free to all ISRI members. Now here's my question. Why is it that on average they are utilized by only about 30% of our members? Where are the other 70%? Superfund protection, SRIA compliance reports are an essential part of your defense should you ever be cited in a Superfund situation. ISRI makes them available for less than 1/10 of the retail cost and far less than if you had to do this research on your own. So why does 70% of you choose not to get them? Excuse me. Safety services. ISRI safety training programs have been called some of the best available in any industry. From training videos to posters to individualized safety blueprint training, ISRI provides you with top quality safety programs for free. For most of our companies, you can pay for your entire year's dues simply with the safety services you can receive from ISRI. So why don't more of you do that? But safety isn't just about saving money. Safety is our #1 core value. It's about lives. It's about caring for our customers and our employees and our communities every hour of every day. Last year, after a series of tragic deaths, ISRI announced a Safety Stand-Down Day for every facility to stop and focus totally on safety in their operations. Safety Stand-Down Day for 2015 will be held on June 24th and will now be an annual event each June during National Safety Month. Last year, we created the Circle of Safety Excellence. An impressive total of 83 companies have joined during the initial launch. It was established for companies that are willing to share safety data and best practices for the betterment of their own safety operation and that of the industry. The data shared will help us establish benchmarks to measure our progress as we seek not only to be safer, but to be known as one of the safest industries in the United States. Those in the circle will receive exclusive benefits that others don't get. You'll likely notice some of those at the exclusive events that are here at the convention, and in fact, they will be meeting tomorrow to review the first set of benchmarking data. If you want to find out what it takes to be part of the ISRI Circle of Safety Excellence, ask at the ISRI booth, or ask any Circle member wearing the gold Circle ribbon on the badge. So, what's the payback for all this work the association is doing to promote safety? Well, this week we learned some very interesting news from our friends at RecycleGuard. Their analysis of claims shows that over the last 3 years, ISRI members have shown to be significantly safer than non-ISRI members in the recycling industry, based on losses as a percentage of premiums. That, my friends, is a big deal. Over the last 2 decades, those same studies have shown ISRI loss rates to be the same or even worse than non-members. But in the last 3 years, ISRI's rates are not only better, they are significantly better. It shows that ISRI's safety message is moving the needle. It's happening because of the folks who show up and who have committed to ISRI safety programs. In the years that I've been involved with ISRI, I've had the privilege to work with some giants. They came from some of our industry's largest companies, from some of our industry's smallest companies, and many in between. Some have been owners in family-owned operations. Others have been leaders in larger corporations. What did they have in common? They showed up. They gave of their time and their expertise to help make your trade association stronger. They groomed and mentored future leaders. They identified needs and helped create services to fill those needs. And in the end, they were stronger. We are stronger leaders. And our association is a force to be reckoned with. This week at ISRI, you're going to meet some ISRI members, you'll meet some non-members, and you'll meet some leaders of other associations and federations from around the world, as well as equipment and service providers downstairs on the expo floor. You will see and hear from key leaders in the Bureau of International Recycling, as well as from national federations and associations on nearly every continent. Together, we in ISRI, along with these members and leaders of these organizations, are the global leaders in scrap recycling. We recognize the importance of actively working together, and together we'll weather tough times. We always have, we always will. But it all starts with one move. Show up. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the ISRI Communications Committee Chair, Tom Kniffel.
Good morning, everyone. In 2013, ISRI launched a school curriculum focused on the science of recycling in collaboration with Jason Learning, a joint effort of the National Geographic Society and Sea Research Foundation. We are pleased to have Patrick Shea from Jason here with us today. For the second consecutive year, we broadened both our curriculum outreach and the partnership with Jason through a video and poster contest. And this year's theme focused on automobile recycling awareness. Entries were received from across the country in both the video and poster categories, and we're excited to recognize the winners today for this year's contest. This year's grand prize poster winner is Caitlin Tynanes, a 7th grader from Kapolei, Hawaii. Unfortunately, Caitlin was unable to join us in Vancouver, but as you can see from her poster, she is a gifted young artist, and we congratulate her on winning this year's poster contest. Turning to the video category, our middle school winner is a 12-year-old young lady who attends H.B. Matlin Middle School in Plainview, New York. 7th grader Elizabeth Korn's entry was imaginative, insightful, and carried a powerful message. Let's take a look.
When you see these old, broken-down car parts, what words pop into your head? Useless junk? Trash? But what if that same trash could be turned into treasure? The truth is it actually can. Cars are made up of lots of commodities, many of which can be used to make new things. Let's take lead, for example. Lead can be found in car batteries, but it can do a lot more than just sit in the dump once it's done its job. About 80% of automobile batteries are recyclable, but not that many are actually recycled. But what happens to that lead? First, the lead content from plate grids, terminals, and posts must be free from contaminants. The lead is melted and purified by being poured into molds called pigs or hogs, depending on its size. The impurities then rise to the top because of the weight of lead and are scraped off. The pure lead is then left to cool and harden. Yes, those lead plates can be used to make new batteries, but that's not all. Lead can be used for buildings, on candle wicks for a longer, more even burn, and even to make solar cells. That's right, that building that was just made out of lead could be lit up by lead as well, just by making that small decision to recycle your old car. That's not even the best part. Lead can actually be turned into gold. Here's how it works. Lead has an atomic number of 82, and gold has an atomic number of 79, meaning that they have that many protons. The concept is simple. All scientists need to do is remove 3 protons. This can be done by using a particle accelerator that uses a magnetic field. Now we've lit up a whole building and made maybe a necklace out of that gold, all from recycling a broken down car. So is it worth it to recycle your old car when it can make a huge impact? Think about it. Because it's the little things that make the big difference. Recycle.
And by the way, I checked the science. It actually works. Congratulations, Elizabeth. This year, our grand prize winner in the video category is a high school student from Greenwich, Connecticut. 11th grader Georgina Cahill produced an amazing short video that does a fantastic job conveying the theme of this year's competition. Let's view it now.
Get out of the way, you good-for-nothing geezer. Now I know what you're thinking. I'm just a beat-up old truck who can't do anything. But that's not true at all. I can actually do a lot. Here, let me show you. The process of building a brand new car produces a lot more pollution than you may think. Just transporting the components that make up steering wheels and seats generates 1,200 million cubic yards of air emissions and 29 tons of solid waste. Throwing out things like upholstery, lead-acid batteries, tires, and other car materials adds to this as well. All of this can really start to add up. Manufacturing cars actually makes up 1/3 of the pollution produced by cars. That's where cars like me help out. Recycling cars can cut down on this pollution significantly. You can recycle engines, water pumps, gas tanks, car seats, and rubber. Just my tires, for instance, can be used to make furniture, purses, or playground material. Those shoes you're wearing may have come from a car like me. Recycling cars can stop a ton of extra pollution from happening. Do you see how much I can do? Consider recycling your old car today so that we can drive towards a more eco-friendly future.
ISRI's recognition is not the only recognition Georgina has received. Earlier this week, she was honored by the Lieutenant Governor of Connecticut for this great video. Congratulations, Georgina, on a job well done and for winning this year's top honor.
Thank you. I would just like to thank ISRI and Jason Learning for presenting me with this award and allowing me to come here and share my video with you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your continued support of ISRI's initiative with Jason Learning.
Thank you, Tom. In 2013, ISRI established the Transportation Safety Awards program to recognize companies and drivers whose outstanding safety records set an example for our industry. Sadly, transportation-related incidents rank as one of the most troublesome spots on our safety record. Our winners today show it is possible to operate safely for extended periods of time. This year, we honor not only safe drivers, but also maintenance technicians and managers whose outstanding efforts ensure that commercial vehicles are safe on the road. Please hold your applause while we announce our winners. Among our industry's largest fleets, we have one winner this year. I'm pleased to award both our Pace Setters and Best Fleet Awards to OmniSource Transport. Our awards for the small class, which is fleets logging 300 to 500,000 miles per year, the Best Fleet Award and Pace Setter, the Best Fleet Award and the Pace Setter Award goes to General Metals of Tacoma in Tacoma, Washington, part of the Schnitzer Steel family. In the intermediate class, fleets logging 500,000 to 1 million miles each year, the Best Fleet and Pace Setter Award goes to Schnitzer Steel Industries of Portland, Oregon. In the medium class fleets logging from 1 to 5 million miles, the Best Fleet and Pace Setter Award goes to Metal Exchange Corporation of St. Louis, Missouri. And in the large class, fleets logging more than 5 million miles, the Best Fleet and Pace Setter Award goes to OmniSource Transport, LLC of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Congratulations to each of these companies. This year's new Golden Wrench Award is presented to Francis Duran of OmniSource Corporation in Lima, Ohio, who has been a maintenance technician there for 35 years. And finally, our Driver of the Year Award for the second year in a row goes to Harry Squires of Schnitzer Steel Industries in Portland, Oregon, with a 40.5-year safe driving record. Please welcome Harry Squires and Francis Duran to the stage. Congratulations, gentlemen. Finally, this morning, I am pleased and excited to introduce our keynote speaker. You know, last week I was talking to a friend in this industry, driving to work as a matter of fact, about how this business cycle is really affecting not only our businesses but our attitudes. It's hard when you know you're good at what you do and you're doing it as well as you ever have, and the market conditions are what they are, and business is what it is. You used to be, you couldn't wait to get to work in the morning. You used to love getting to work early in the morning, but it seems to be getting harder by the day to get out of bed and motivate. We have to change that attitude. We've got to find the one thing that can reignite the spark that energizes you, that makes you want to get out of bed and get to work early every morning. That one thing may be different for each of us, but I know that there are 1,001 things and opportunities here at ISRI 2015. One big opportunity is listening to our keynote speaker this morning. I can't think of a better person to reignite the entrepreneurial spirit within this room, and that's why I am so excited to introduce to you Stan Slapp. Now, I know that Stan Slapp is not exactly a household name in many places outside his own home. But Stan is a smart, motivated, and experienced businessman and an entrepreneur who has worked for some household names that you will recognize, like Patagonia, Pennzoil, Oracle, Coca-Cola, and Facebook. He's the author of a couple of really interesting, thought-provoking books on corporate culture, and he's an expert on helping companies deal and managers deal with tough times. And that's precisely why I wanted him here today. You may not have known his name before this morning, but I guarantee you, after you hear what he has to say, you'll never forget him. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Stan Slapp.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, how you doing? Good. We'll fix that. Okay. Listen, excuse me. Before we get started today, before we even get started, I know that you're here for all sorts of reasons. But one of those reasons must be to learn something. And there are two ways to learn anything. I mean, you know this. There's data and there's experience. And there's two types of experience. There's good experience and there's bad experience. And even though we all like to claim we're nibbling from the higher branches by this point in our evolution, let's face it, it's most often the bad experience that finally claims our attention. Which is why, before we even get started today, I would like to dedicate our time together to the one company which in recent memory has committed the most boneheaded act. An act that is not just so anti-business sense, it's so anti-common sense that it can only be interpreted as a selfless act, as a noble gesture, so the rest of us may learn what not to do and so grow and prosper in our own organizations. Now, competition for the dedication spot in this talk has been understandably fierce, but we do business in over 70 countries in my company, so I thought, some of these targets are just too easy. I'll try for a sophisticated international flair, and I'll look outside our own borders to see if I can find the one company worthy of the dedication spot today. And I did that, and I did find that company. And so I would like to dedicate our time together today to Aeroflot, the Russian airline. Has anybody here ever flown Aeroflot? Has anybody here ever flown United? You've flown Aeroflot, pretty much the same thing. And by the way, everything I tell you here today is true. Aeroflot management, in a desperate bid to cure sagging revenue, leaped upon a new consumer promotion that they introduced into the business press in Eastern Europe. And according to Aeroflot management in this article, Aeroflot was about to implement its first ever Smile Day. And according to Aeroflot management, on Smile Day, every employee of the airline will be under orders to, quote, smile unceasingly at customers for the entire day. And they were asked in this article, well, what if Smile Day is a success? And their official corporate spokesperson responded, well, if Smile Day is a success, we will consider implementing it on an annual basis. And I thought, it is exactly this treatment of symptom over sickness that is responsible for the chronic ills that business faces today. Because it's not just the metal recycling industry, the scrap industry. The problems that continue to baffle and bedevil managers in every industry, in every country, in every line of business, in every company are not really new problems. The biggest problem is that the solutions are not really new solutions. Now, nowhere is that more the case than when it comes to a subject like managing during tough times, which is what I've been asked to talk to you about today. Now, managing during tough times, that's a big subject. We could spend a lifetime talking about managing during tough times. I don't have a lifetime to spend you talking about managing during tough times. I have an hour. So I figured I had a choice. I could make the hour seem like a lifetime to you. Or I could focus on what's most important. And today I'm going to focus on what's most important, which is how to make sure that you remain standing when everything around you seems to be falling down. And that's most important because many companies and their managers have elaborate excuses to explain why poor performance is rarely their own fault and instead the result of conditions and circumstances far beyond their control. They're quick to blame acts of God, forces of nature, world events. I mean, look at the circumstances that have made the Management Excuses Hall of Fame. It was El Nino. La Nina. It was the rise of technology. It was the fall of technology. It was government interference. It was the lack of government interference. It was the yen is up, the yen is down, the yen is back up again. It was Iran, no, it was Iraq, no, it's Iran again. It was Christmas is falling on a Tuesday. The kiwi crop is frozen in New Zealand. Those damn killer bees are back. Really, in many companies, I think managers should have their own game show. Can't you just see this? Wouldn't this just be perfect? It's the wide world of management excuses where you could just pick from categories about why whatever has gone wrong is not your own fault. Just like, Now, are you managing in maddening times? Yes. In this industry, in this room, yes, you are. But that's not what's important. What's important is what you do about it. It is the job of management to bring good answers to bad circumstances. Now, that may not seem so easy to do if you've never even seen circumstances like the one you're having to deal with now. It's easy to feel paralyzed, to think that the conditions that affect your business are out of your control to affect. But that's all that is just a feeling. In fact, the things that seem most out of control to affect, to improve and regulate your business performance, are generally most in your control. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. I'd like to bring up 4 of the biggest issues. We're going to bring them up, and we're going to bust them down. And then I want to give you some rules for the road that will serve you during good times and bad. So let's start here. Let's start with maybe the biggest reason. And the economy is in ruins. Now, in 2008, Bear Stearns went out of business, pretty much triggering the recession that followed. And Bear Stearns was a company that, according to the Wall Street Journal, was addicted to risk. And the chairman of Bear Stearns, James Kane, was also, according to a lot of published reports, not in the business when Bear Stearns was going out of business. He spent his last year, verifiably, getting stoned and playing bridge. Now, right there we have a problem. Who gets stoned to play bridge? But that aside. And when Bear Stearns went out of business, Jimmy Kane was interviewed, and he said, and they asked him what happened. He said, well, Bear Stearns was hit by a perfect storm. Right. As if the economy, the world economy, is a mysterious, uncontrollable, unforeseeable force of nature that roared through the financial services community, tipping August investment houses and slow-moving cows into roadside ditches. In fact, the world economy and what happened to it was entirely man-made, which meant it was entirely predictable and preventable. And no matter what the economy is doing to your business now, it's not going to keep doing that to your business unless you allow it to. I mean, we know we have 3,500 years of recorded business history to know that the economy, the world economy, is cyclical. And what goes down must come up again. The question is, what do you do in the meantime? The fascinating thing about the economy is apparently it can only hurt you. If you ask many companies, when business performance is up, they credit their own boundless vision and tireless expertise. When business performance is down, well, it's the economy. So here's what I would say to you, and what I would urge you to say to your people, particularly your sales teams, if you have them. Okay, you want to credit the economy as the reason that business performance is down? That's fine. But here's the deal. When business performance goes back up, you have to give the economy all the credit. That should take care of that right now. And in fact, there are a number of companies that have continued to prosper, in some cases posting record performance gains in every industry in the middle of the most dire economic circumstances. They just didn't get the memo that they weren't supposed to do well. What do those companies have in common? What they have in common is that they refuse to consider that their business depends entirely on the vagaries of a world economy that they couldn't control. And so they spent their time focusing on what they could control. And what all of those companies realized is that good management will always defeat a bad economy. Let's look at another issue. The competition is killing us. What are the components of business success? Well, you have to have a high-quality, dependable product. You have to have tremendous operational efficiencies. You have to do what you say you're going to do for your customers. You have to have prudent financial management, strategically sound marketing, responsible growth, committed leaders who inspire dedicated employees. Which of these things is the competition responsible for in your business? None. Nada. Zip. Zilch. Zero. You are your own competition. There's nothing a competitor can ever do to you, no debilitating blow it can ever serve you that would be as damaging as what you can do to yourself. And if by chance any of you ever get focused on taking down a competitor, that's a very dangerous thing to do, to demonize a competitor, because unconsciously you start acting like them instead of being on your own game and doing what you got to do. You only have so much energy in the business. And the key to navigating through hyper-competitive circumstances is just to forget the rest and do what you do best. If there's any rationale to your business and how you conduct that business, you will triumph in the end. Now let's get into a couple of topics that deserve a little bit more time. First, we have to do more with fewer people. Let's talk about your employees. Now, like any company, your company is regularly betting its life on the ability to roll out new strategies into the marketplace. They may be product strategies, they may be policy strategies, they may be go-to-market strategies, they may be sales and pricing strategies, but something. The success of your company depends on you being able to roll out those strategies ahead of schedule, ahead of budget, maybe on the heads of your competitors. But most strategies in most companies don't really work. They really don't. If you take a hard post-mortem look at most strategies in most companies, they don't really do what they're supposed to do, they don't really cost what they're supposed to cost, and they don't really happen when they're supposed to happen. Most strategies in most companies only look like they're moving forward because they're being slammed from behind by the next strategy. I'm talking about every other company in the world, not your company, so don't give me the look. This is every other company in the world has this problem. And that's because even the smartest companies in the world subscribe to the most dangerous strategic myth, that a strategy has to be planned well to be successful. In fact, a strategy has to be implemented well to be successful. And implemented well starts with being able to enroll your employee culture in ferocious support of that strategy or performance goal. If you can do that, you're well on your way to achieving strategic insurance. But you are building a base camp on Mount Delusional if you think that any strategy, any performance goal will ever be successful without the hardcore support of this particular group. And just because it's always darkest before it turns pitch black, let me make it even worse for you. Your customers are generally employees somewhere too. And that means they're part of the overall employee culture. And they will decide to protect or reject your company based in large part on how they perceive your company treats people just like them. Now, unless there are renowned circumstances that you're known as the best employer in the industry or the worst, a lot of that perception is going to be an intuitive mind meld between your people and your customers. But it's going to be based upon what kind of legitimate enthusiasm your people have for your products and your pricing and your policies, because as an employee somewhere themselves, your customer knows they'd never show that same kind of legitimate enthusiasm unless they're being treated with a certain type of deep and rare respect. Now, maybe you're thinking that this shouldn't be an issue at all, because after all, what's the purpose of your strategies and performance goals in the company? It's to increase revenue. It's to improve margin. It's to make market share. It's, forget about making, it's to take market share and hold it without diluting margin. It's market domination. It's faster time to market. It's improved quality. Which employee working for any of you could ever argue with the irrefutable logic of these corporate strategies? In a perfect world, your people wouldn't argue at all. They'd immediately grasp this logic and devote themselves wholeheartedly toward achieving your goals. Well, wake up, wipe the drool from your desk, and say hi to reality. Because in the real world, neither business logic, nor management authority, nor any compelling competitive urgency will ever convince an employee culture to adopt a corporate cause as if it were its own. In that killing field between company concept and employee commitment, lies many a failed strategic plan. You want your people to buy some new goal from you? That's fine. That means you have to know how to sell it to them. Know how an employee culture works and how to work the culture. And I can tell you right now, this is not a matter of informing your employee culture about anything. It's a matter of inspiring it. It's not a matter of vision, of PowerPoint or even bonus programs. It's a matter of vision and values, and it's not a matter of logic. It's a matter of logical methods for stirring deep response. You had better be able to stir that deep response, because who is going to decide the success of any performance goal in your company? If you're running the company, start by crossing yourself right off the list. Your employee culture has the first vote. If your culture wants something to happen, it's going to happen. And if it doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen. And we're not, by the way, we're not just talking about a bunch of employees. When your employees formed a relationship with your company, they became a culture. And as a culture, they are far more self-protective, far more intelligent, and far more resistant to standard methods of corporate influence. Now, if the success of your company and your own career depends on achieving results through other people, and those other people happen to work for you, understanding the true motivations of an employee culture is the most critical information you can have. So I want to take some time now and explain culture to you, because culture is typically the most overused yet least understood concept in business. The companies who really get this are the companies that are able to navigate through tough times and good times to ultimate success. So let me tell you a little bit about culture. And before I do that, let me just do a quick check here. How many people in this room are actually managers at one level or another with head count? Raise your delicate, well-manicured fingers. Is there anybody in this room that would qualify themselves more as the managed? Raise your tough, callous, working-class hands, please. Okay. For those of you who are the managed, I'm going to be talking about you for a little bit here. Now, don't you start getting all snarly and cocky going, your career could take a sudden wrong turn. You could become a manager that fast, you're going to wish you'd listened to this information. Now, because the more you know about culture, the more successful you are going to be during tough times and good times. Let me start by explaining where the contemporary definition of culture used by business first came about. Now, what I'm about to tell you, I hope proves fascinating to you. It may seem kind of irrelevant to you for about 3 minutes, but managers, I promise you this. You're going to hate it. So, the contemporary definition of culture used by business today first came about with a woman by the name of Margaret Mead. Anybody ever heard that name? For those of you who haven't, Margaret Mead was an anthropologist. She was a cultural anthropologist. She did a lot of her work at the turn of the last century, studying primitive native tribes in the deepest, darkest jungles of the South Pacific, New Guinea, Samoa. Her first book, the book that brought her to prominence, cracked the code on culture, gave business its accurate working definition, was a study of a group of primitive natives in the deepest, darkest jungles of Samoa. We're talking about it as primitive gets. And this book was written in 2 parts. Now, she didn't intend to write it in 2 parts, just turned out that way. Because the first part of this book, which is called The Coming of Age in Samoa, still in print today, the first part of this book is written from her vantage point, hiding out in the jungle, spying on these natives through the weeds as they went about their daily business. And in the first part of the book, she wrote, well, this isn't civilization. Here we have a loose group of individuals who mysteriously gather together at the beginning of each day. And then they disperse out into the jungle in no discernible pattern, and then they mysteriously gather back together at the end of each day. She said, I don't understand this. What brings these same people back together day after day after day? And when they are together, what's the glue that binds them together? Because if you're going to hang with the same group of people day after day after day, you have to have some commonly accepted rules of behavior that everybody agrees to obey. You have to have some commonly practiced rituals to certify and communicate those rules of behavior that everybody agrees to practice. She said, how would anybody in this funky tribe know any of that stuff? She said, there isn't a single person here who even knows how to read. She said, that's not that big of a deal. There's not a single person who knows how to write. She said, this isn't civilization, this is chaos. Well, that was the first part of the book. The second part of the book was written after the natives stopped pretending that they didn't notice some old white woman in a Banana Republic safari outfit hiding in the weeds. Well, really, it is their jungle, okay? If someone was in your living room behind your couch with a pair of binoculars and a notepad for 6 months, you probably know she was there. Turns out they knew she was there the entire time. They were just screwing with her. True, everything I tell you here today is true. There's another book that's very famous primarily in anthropological circles called The Fateful Hoaxing of Margaret Mead. It was written by a group of senior anthropologists who went back many years later to interview that same tribe. And under some pressure with some free t-shirts and software and stuff, they kind of coughed up the truth. These people don't have cable. It's the most exciting thing that's happened to them in years. And so, did they remember some old whacked out woman with a pith helm and a pencil? Yes, they did. And when they were told what she had said about them, they basically admitted she got it right. But they also admitted in this second book, playing her just a wee bit. One of the things they admit doing in that second book is inventing bizarre, complex mating rituals just to see if she'd copy it down. Like, oh my God. Great, I see some of you are finally taking notes. Pick up book, Margaret Mead. That's very inspiring. And so, meanwhile, the second part of Mead's book was written after the natives stopped pretending that she wasn't there, and they invited her in to meet the tribe, coincidentally around dinner time. And in the second part of Mead's book, she wrote, I Take It All Back. This is, in fact, one of the most thoroughly civilized, heavily ritualized societies I've ever heard of or witnessed. These people, these simple people, have rules and rituals for everything. How to become a man, how to become a woman, birth rights, death rights, relationships with other tribes, celebratory feasts for the chief, location of safe watering holes. And she said, more amazing than that, every single person in this tribe obeys these rules faithfully. Every single person in this tribe practices these rituals accurately, but they don't know how to read and they don't know how to write. How is this possible? Why does this happen? She said, well, first of all, they don't need to know how to read, and they don't need to know how to write, because these people know how to tell stories. She called them legends. She said, in fact, there is a chief storyteller in the tribe. It's not the chief himself, but pretty far up in the hierarchy, kind of the CSO, chief storytelling officer. Has a corner hut, doing all right for himself. She said, when information comes in to the tribe, it comes in through this chief storyteller who spins it into a legend, whips it out amongst the tribe. They pick it up and whip it around amongst themselves. She said, more amazing than that, we are talking about the middle of a jungle clearing in Samoa. There's not a lot of late-breaking news here. So the stories these people tell, they're raggedy old stories. They've heard them 1,000 times before, but they keep them fresh. They keep them relevant. They keep them urgent by repeating them over and over and over and over again. She said, this is a culture. Whenever you have a group of people who share the same basic lifestyle, environment, and traditions, in this case, all these natives, all in this jungle, all in this tribe, all with this chief, she said it is their shared beliefs about the rules of survival and emotional prosperity. What does it take for me to keep to stay alive in this jungle, in this tribe, with this chief? And knowing I'm basically going to survive, how do I get rewarded emotionally and avoid punishment? And she said whenever people share the same basic living conditions, they band together to share these beliefs. Because the more people looking out for the safe watering hole, the safer it is for everyone. Well, business jumped on this immediately. Because in any organizational environment, you have the same conditions you had in that jungle in Samoa. In your organizational environment, you have exactly the same conditions you had in that jungle in Samoa. You have a group of people who all share the same basic lifestyle, environment, and traditions. They all work in this industry. They all work for your company. They all work on your team. They all work for you. And so just like in the jungles of Samoa, your employees have a culture. And just like in the jungles of Samoa, that culture is all about their shared beliefs of the rules of survival and emotional prosperity. What does it take for me to survive in this industry, in this company, on this team, working for you? And knowing that I'm basically going to be okay, then how do I get rewarded emotionally and avoid punishment? And just like in the jungles of Samoa, your employees communicate those beliefs by telling stories. Just like in the jungles of Samoa, the combined power of those stories decides what your people will do and what they won't do. Just like in the jungles of Samoa, every one of your employees knows these stories by heart, and they repeat them over and over and over again. Okay, for the washer and the dryer, who are all of the stories about that your people tell, do you think? Don't look around, that's not going to save you here. Okay, listen. A brief horrific recap in case you missed the implications. Your employees have 25, 35, 55, maybe 75 stories, and every one of those stories is about you. The combined power of these stories decides what your people will do and what they won't do. It doesn't matter what you say. Everybody on your team knows these stories by heart, and they repeat them over and over and over and over again. You, the topic of all of these stories, will never hear these stories. Never. Never. Write this down. Never. They're like whistles only dogs can hear. In fact, knowing that you're here these couple of days, your employees are having a cultural legend fest in your office. Oh, really? No, there's costumes, awards, speakers, They've been eating better than you'll be eating. It'll all be wrapped up by the time you get back. I mean never. Now, why will you never hear these stories? What, are you not also dealing with the same tough times? Are you not also working in the same industry with the same products, the same regulations, the same performance goals, the same customers? Why will you never hear these stories? Two important reasons. First, these stories represent what your employee culture has figured out are the rules of survival in your world. If it was to reveal to you what it has figured out are the rules of survival and emotional prosperity working for you, what's the very first thing you would do? Change them. Of course you would, you mutating virus. What's the possible upside to your employee culture to reveal to you that it has collected this information? Second important reason, you will never hear these stories. You are not part of your employee culture. Don't ever make that mistake. No, you are management standing outside the culture trying to sell it something. Hey, you may be friendly with your people. Maybe you're friends with some of your people. Maybe you used to be one of your people, you got promoted or you own the business. But you're not part of your people's culture. No, you have a special place in the culture. It's a lonely place, but it's special. You are the chief. You are the chief. Do you want me to give you a minute to kind of wall it? Well, get over it, because there's some penalties attached. First of all, chief is not some honorary title bestowed upon you in abject appreciation by a devoted, humble employee culture. It's just short for chief subject of all the stories. So don't be getting a swell head about that, or they'll shrink it right down for you. Secondly, I mean you will never hear these stories. Well, let's assume you're coming to terms with the implications of what I'm telling you, and you are furiously scribbling action plan. And you resolve, now that you know this, to go back to your company and start being a lot closer to your people. Not because you have any greater affection for them, you're just trying to thin the herd to find the one employee you can crack like a walnut to get them to spill the stories. So you start engaging in a lot of frantic team building activities. Come on, let's huddle. No I in team, all that crap. Until you can finally isolate the most susceptible candidate. And on the chosen day of delivery, you make sure to give this one unfortunate soul so much extra work to do, you know exactly where they're going to be, butt in chair, for the entire day. The middle of that day, when you can walk by that chair and see the work just stacked up on both sides, you say, perfect. You grab a wire coat hanger, you hustle out to the parking lot, you find their car, you open their car and release the brake on their car, and you push their car all the way to the farthest perimeter of the parking lot. That night, when they finally finish all the work especially assigned to them that day as a high potential candidate, they stumble out to the parking lot to go home, and they can't find their car. They say, where's my car? I don't remember parking my car all the way out there by itself. Oh my God, what a day. So they trudge all the way out to the farthest perimeter of the parking lot where their car's the only car in sight. They put the key in the door and they turn the key. You pop up from behind the car. You say, psst, come here. Say, I have two hands. I have two envelopes. In this hand is an envelope containing the actual negatives. I'm not talking cheap prints. I'm not talking easily reproducible digital files. The actual negatives of you at last year's company Christmas party in that rubber sheep outfit. You say, in this hand is an envelope containing our team's entire discretionary bonus pool for the year in cash. You say, now I'm a reasonable human being. You can have the negatives, you can have the cash. And really, here's all you have to do for me. Tell me a story about myself. Doesn't have to be a new one, doesn't have to be a big one. Just tell me a story. Well, I would say if you enjoy that kind of unique leverage over a member of your employee culture, you have them isolated out there where there's no other members around. You have maximum pain and pleasure in your two hands. You're willing to deliver on both. And all they have to do is tell you a single story about you. I would say in that circumstance, that rare circumstance only, they will in fact tell you one of the stories. They'll tell you one of three the culture keeps in case it's captured. It's not one of the real stories. They're never going to tell you one of the real stories. So what do you do about this? The more you learn about an employee culture, the more critical the employee culture is to you getting through tough times and really accomplishing any performance goal in the business, and yet the more unmanageable it seems to be. Well, once you understand an employee culture, it is the simplest operating system in the world. An employee culture is an information-gathering organism designed to assure its own survival. The implications of that are that its antenna is working constantly, tracking you 24/7. Its credibility detector is nearly infallible. Its perceptions are alarmingly accurate. Its memory is elephantine. You cannot bribe, bluff, or bully your employee culture into sustainably doing or believing anything. You can't tell it what to believe. You can't stop it from existing. But you can take comfort in realizing that your employee culture is the most rational organism in the world. It is solely concerned about understanding the rules of survival and emotional prosperity. It doesn't even mind bad news. It minds whether it can trust who's giving it the news. Now, from a management perspective, I've had a lot of managers say, okay, I get this. My culture is concerned about survival. Okay, here we go. Do your job and you'll keep it. How was that, huh? Pretty stuff. Yeah. Oh, what else? Oh, emotional prosperity. Okay, do your job and you'll keep it and we'll tell you you're doing a good job. Well, that stuff only works if there is a reliable through line in the perception of your employee culture between what happens to the company and what happens to the culture. Generally, there's dirt in that machine, and the culture doesn't connect the two. And so when the culture talks about protecting itself, it does not always mean protecting your business, unbelievably enough, even though it will also be affected by that. Your culture is an independent organism with its own purpose, its own priorities living right inside your company, and with the power to make or break any management plan and any manager right along with it. So what can you do? I want to give you some tactical stuff you can do right now. Here's the number, other than respecting the power of an employee culture and understanding what it is. If I had one piece of advice to give you on what you can do, I would give you this advice. A culture is an organism, and like any organism, it needs energy to survive. But an employee culture has an extraordinary need for energy because the culture's entire business is to remain on constant input, taking in all information, what is being said, what's not being said, facts, patterns, trends, happenings, rumors, and crunch all that to extract hopefully reliable data it can apply to updating the rules of survival and emotional prosperity. Now, that would be exhausting work. That'd be exhausting if your culture could do it laying on the couch like playing a video game. But it can't. You're pushing it off that couch in a constant forward motion. Work this way, work harder, work more. And so the culture is being asked to move forward, and it isn't sure if it's safe to move forward. And so it's a jerky, uncoordinated movement. It's like disco night at the Toledo Elks Club. And your culture is burning through a lot of energy because it has to keep up defense shields against the unknown. Now, you do not want your employee culture's energy to fall below the waterline, because if it does, it will use its remaining stores to detach from you and your goals and protect itself, even at the expense of protecting the company. That's just the way it is. Not saying it makes sense from a management perspective, but that's the reality. You can demand whatever energy you want from your culture. You just have to resupply it as you go. And when I'm talking about energy, I'm not talking some woo-woo metaphysical energy. I mean the energy that will translate into loyalty and resilience and advocacy and productivity. So there are 3 dimensions of an employee culture's energy. You need to supply these and resupply these constantly to keep the culture fully charged, where it has discretionary energy to give to you and your goals. The first is context, looking backwards. Can your employee culture understand why something is happening in the business? Because if it can, it doesn't need to use as much energy to wonder where to place this new information. Now, in many companies, new goals are explained all the time. What happened to the old goals is never explained any of the time. What, did the dog eat the old strategy? What happened to that? And so the culture is never sure exactly why something is happening in the business. When you explain what is happening now, make sure you explain why what was happening before is not. Next is predictability, looking forward. Can the culture estimate accurately what will happen next? If you said to your employee culture, over the next quarter, over the next half year, over the next year, here's where this business has to go. We are here, we need to get here. Could your employee culture anticipate how the company would act in any number of circumstances between here and there? If it could, it doesn't have to use as much energy wondering what's going to happen next. But in most companies, it really can't say that. If you conducted predictability exercises for your culture to say, all right, here's the goal. We've got to go from here to here. Now, here's 5 things that could happen on the way from here to here. Let me tell you exactly what this company would do in every one of those circumstances. And those are only the 5 I know about. What are the 5 you're worried about? Okay, here's what we would do exactly. That's the kind of stuff that re-ups energy for your culture. And finally, a sense of self, looking inward. How is being part of your company used to make your employee culture feel better about itself? Now, I tell you what, everybody who works has got to constantly answer 2 questions. For people you've never met before, it's what do you do? For people who know you the best, it's so what'd you do today? And if the answer to those 2 questions fails to produce a better sense of self for your employee culture, that they feel good about what they do and they feel good about what they did today, you are draining that energy away. And so this isn't a matter of what you do as a business or even how you do it. It's a matter of the real character of your company that you're asking your employee culture to affiliate with and represent. Who are you really? What kind of company are you really? What do you really stand for? How do you conduct your business? Don't ever think you can front load that message and then ignore it. Repeat it over and over and over again. Constantly reemphasize this. Because the bottom line about your employee culture, even during tough times, it's not who you have, it's what they're willing to give. Now, let's talk about your customers. Many companies managing tough times blame their customers that their customers have changed and somehow are not willing to support them during these tough times. Well, customers haven't changed. Customers want the same things they've always wanted. And what really hasn't changed is the maximum commitment your customer culture can give you, which would be if it branded you. Now, branding is something you should want. You should want your company to be a brand. And any company can be a brand. You think about brands, you think about Apple and Harley Davidson and Procter & Gamble. Any company in this room can be a brand. Branding has nothing to do with being big, or Siberia would be a brand. Branding has to do with what you do to become branded and why you do it. And the reason that you should want your company to become a brand on your watch is you will achieve something by being a brand you cannot achieve any other way. This is what happens to a brand. When you are a brand, you transfer sustainability of your company to your customers. And your customers advertise and sell for you. And they protect you if you stumble or get attacked. It's the ultimate rock star transformation for any management team on their watch to transform from a company to a brand. Now, there is more mythology, misdirection, superstition, and generalized academic babble about branding than most business subjects. About half of our work is helping companies become brands, so let me just clear up some of that stuff for you. Let me tell you what it is, what won't work, and something that you can do, 2 things you can do right away to help you on the road to becoming a brand and getting this from your customers. First of all, common talk will have you believe that a brand is about achieving trust. It's not about achieving trust. Achieving trust in your customers is easy. The bar for achieving trust in customers is embarrassingly low. If you do generally what you say you're going to do, and if you don't do it, you generally take care of it, you'll get trusted. A brand isn't about that. A brand is about achieving the highest level of trust possible amongst human beings. A brand is about achieving faith. And faith is I believe, but I don't know. Now, a culture doesn't even like to extend trust because it could be vulnerable. To give you unfounded trust is the rarest gift a culture will ever give. But you have to get it to become a brand, because the first thing a brand has to do is answer this question for your customer culture. How can we trust you when you tell us you care? Now, every company says it cares about customers. It would be so refreshing to finally encounter a company that said, shut up, we don't care, give us the money, go home, we're closed. I would actually trust a company like that. I'm actually hearing the truth as this company sees it. But the smarmiest, nastiest, most heinous companies are the ones that have to tell you more than usual that they care. So from your customer culture's perspective, your culture has no idea how you're going to really act if it gets into trouble or you get into trouble. It's got to give you a leap of faith around this question. And it's even more, to be a brand is even more complicated than this, because you not only have to create faith, you have to achieve faith in the 2 groups who are least inclined to give it to you. These 2 groups. And you got to do it in this order. So here's what won't work, and here's a couple of things that will work that you can do right now in your business. First of all, selling won't do it. You know, selling and service, by the way, are completely different things. I'll break it down for you. One is taking, the other is giving. Service is giving before taking, service is giving during taking, service is giving after taking. But if you want to enter brand territory, service is giving without taking. Service is just giving to customers and potential customers in the faith that they'll make sure you stay around in business long enough so they can repay the favor. It's really, like any company, your company sells 2 things. You sell a product and you sell a process or experience that somebody goes through to buy and use that product. And in the mind of your customer, it's the quality of the process that does most, sometimes all, to determine their decision to purchase, repurchase, and recommend to others. Every product is a souvenir of the experience of buying it. So even if you get an A on what you sell, if you were to get an F on how you sell it, you'd still be a C player. And C players won't withstand the competitive heat of tough times. Now, I'm sure nobody would give you an F on the quality of your customer experience, or you wouldn't be here today. But unless the quality of your customer experience, the process side of your business, is viewed as a pursuit, relentless, urgent, focused, nobody's going to be giving you an A either. And the most successful companies in the world in every industry, the ones that don't just achieve year-to-year performance increases or decade to decade, but generation over generation increases in revenue, margin, and market share. They understand this one thing more than anything else, and they manage the process side of their business like a product, with the same attention to detail and the same commitment of resources they give to the product side of the business. The least successful companies in the world do not understand this one thing more than anything else. They think all they have to do is get an attractively priced product out into the market faster than anybody else does, sell and market the snot out of it, and the process side of the business will mysteriously take care of itself. Well, in the world of high-priced strategic consulting, we call that wrong. The customer experience is a driver to your business, not an afterthought. It belongs as a line item on your P&L, right above sales and marketing, embedded into your G&A. And it would be a bold strategy to treat your customers as a commodity of indefatigable energy and inexhaustible supply. But this is the way a lot of companies do treat their customers. So what is a brandable experience? Because if you want to be a brand, you got to be branded for what you sell. Far more important, you got to be branded for how you sell it, because that's something you can control. You can control the relationship between your company and your customer. And there's nothing that the competition can do to use sales, price, or marketing to get underneath that relationship. So what is a brandable customer experience? It is three things. First of all, it is spectacular. I'm not talking about being ordinary, polite, and friendly. I'm talking about blowing your customers right out of their socks. There have to be aspects of your customer experience that your customer cannot figure out why you're even doing it. It's only a benefit for them. There's nothing apparently in it for you, because that is what is going to cause your customer culture to say you must really be serious about this relationship. The acts that become legendary from companies around the customer experience made no sense inside the company when they were first suggested. They're acts of lunacy and piracy. We can't do that. Nobody does that. Do that. Do those things. It also has to be signature. There have to be aspects of your customer experience that I can only get by being your customer. You pioneered them. Even if somebody knocks you off, I know where they came from. And no matter how spectacular in signature, they have to be sustainable. What you do has to be manageable and affordable inside in order to be consistent outside. And so the first question you have to ask yourself, which is a deceptively simple question, is how good do you want your customer experience to be? Do you want it to be minimal? Do you want it to just be parity, where you're just going to bench yourself to your best competitor? Or do you really want to go for brandable? And if you want to survive these tough times and bulletproof yourself against the times that will come, you have got to move to brandable. Now, here's what won't work as well to create that. In your employees, the key word is willingness. Because being involved in the customer experience is not a matter of skill, it's a matter of behavior. But it's not natural behavior for your employee culture. It means representing a potentially unsupportable testimonial to total strangers in some cases, and the people who love doing that stuff have been carted away and institutionalized. For your culture to do this, they have to believe it's worthwhile emotionally to do it, and they are representing the intentions of a company that really means what it says. For your customer culture, the key word is recognition. It's not enough to provide your customers with a spectacular signature sustained experience. They have to recognize you intended to do it, or they're just going to think they got lucky and not give you the credit you deserve. Or they'll give it to your sales rep or customer rep, not the company. I mean, imagine you went into Macy's, as an example, and got a brandable customer experience. This could never actually happen. In a Macy's in a universe much like our own. You would walk out of that store thinking you just got lucky. You met a Macy's clerk who hadn't been through their training program yet. In order to give Macy's the credit, you'd have to walk out of that store and say, I got an incredible experience, and this company intended for that to happen. Now, even though the logical conduit for your customer experience is the interaction between your employees and your customers, that is not a reliable conduit. Sometimes your people won't deliver it the way you want them to. Sometimes your customer won't receive it the way you want them to. So when you build your customer experience, you have to have aspects of it that fire anyway, regardless of whether the human interaction is good, bad, ugly, or non-existent. You have to have features that your customers can get just by being your customer. Nobody has to give it to them. They just get it. Now, a couple of things about this. We're talking about branding. We're not talking about advertising, okay? The only people who think branding and advertising are the same thing is somebody trying to sell you advertising. Advertising serves the brand. It's not the brand. And it doesn't matter whether you happen to advertise a lot or whether you just dream of the day you could have a $500 million advertising budget. The more money you spend on advertising, the more trouble you can get into, because advertising makes promises. That's what advertising does. But embedded in any advertisement that your company conducts in any media at all, whether it's radio, TV, website, billboard, bus stop, brochure, business card, anytime you engage in the act of putting your name in front of your customer, you are implying a completely different, deeper promise, one that your customer culture totally understands. And that promise is, we're going to take care of you. That's what it means to put your company name in front of a customer. And if the reality of the customer experience in any way violates that immaculate promise, you've just broken trust with your customers. It wouldn't be the first time your customers have had that happen. Your customers grew up with advertising. They grew up being overpromised and underdelivered. And the average American consumer in the average American city today receives exposure to over 3,500 commercial messages a week. That's over 180,000 times a year they've been set up and let down. So it's not just the credibility of your advertising that affects your customer. It's everybody else's advertising. They judge you through that same filter. You better hope that before I get a sales call from you, I didn't just get off a domestic airline or try and get service from my cell phone provider or deal with a government agency. I'm going to hold you through. I'm going to hold you to that same low standard. So, I mean, can you imagine, by the way, if the government insisted that companies tell the literal truth in their advertising, what that would look like? Seriously? Like, you wouldn't be able to say this anymore. This would now be illegal. You would have to tell the truth, which would be an entirely different kind of message. I mean, it wouldn't stop there. Does anybody here work out by any chance? Bottom line about advertising, you can never advertise enough. You have to get your customer culture to advertise for you. A message from your customer culture to your customer culture has got more credibility and impact than anything you'll send from outside. And that's found in the experience of what you do. Because the bottom line is branding is not about communicating your intent to the world. Branding is about why the world should care. It's a reaction, not an action. It's not what you do, it's what happens when you do it. Why should the world care about your business, your company? Is there one thing that every single company that's become a brand has in common? Yes, there is one thing. It is this. The companies that become brands, regardless of their industry, regardless of their size, regardless of whether they're business to consumer or business to business, have in common a deep driving passion. And this passion is where the business starts. Regardless of its value proposition, the business is conceived of in part as a delivery vehicle to build a better world. It has a point of view about what's right with the world that must be protected and wrong with the world that must be corrected. It doesn't matter if that has anything to do with what the business does. The people who are running the business saying, well, hell, as long as we're in business, we're going to see what we can do about protecting or correcting these things. And it is that passion that is most charismatic to your customers. It's that deep driving passion that causes you to be consistent and trustworthy at the highest levels of your business. Let me give you my favorite passion story. There's a building in a city, 1952, Kalamazoo, Michigan. There's a team of 9 people who have worked 1 year together to the day on their all-consuming passion, which is to take 2 pieces of wood that have never been joined together before, smack them together to create a tool which, in their own words, moves with a flip of a switch from warmth to attack. And finally, in 1952, 1 year exactly to the day they began, in all its gold-top glory, the Les Paul electric guitar is finally born. These people have to take this first hand-carved work of passion and pick it up and walk it down a hallway in Gibson World Headquarters. And they have to go into a room and they have to put it on a table. And sitting around that table are all the heads of the business units of Gibson. So you have manufacturing and engineering and sales and finance. And the great fear of this passion team is all that is holy about their work will soon be lost forever. And that is actually a reasonable fear, because the original strategic intent for Gibson was to sell this guitar at a premium the first year, leverage Les Paul's name and fame, mark it down, and blow out the line and close it as a price-driven commodity in 3 years. But something happens with this particular product. A wind whispers through the souls of guitar players all over the world. Something has arrived. And those guitar players use that product to find their own passion. And rock and roll as we know it is born today. What I would say to you is that you had better find the rock and roll in what you do. You better find the thump, fire down below, pedal to the metal, kick out the jams, take it to the streets. Because you will never achieve passion in your customers unless you start with it yourself. And if your only passion is to make money, the cost of making that money will always prove more expensive and difficult than it needs to be. Why? Your customers are not infatuated with your revenue concerns. But if you really take a stand and say the reason we do business this way is because of a deep belief about what's right with the world that must be protected and wrong with the world that must be corrected, even if we're not in the business of doing those things, you will not only rule the world, people will want you to. Now let me end up by giving you 5 fast rules for the road that you can take with you during tough times and good times alike. Number 1. Stay on the solution side. If you allow your company to start blaming external circumstances for internal performance, you might as well give it up right now. But that's where apathy comes from and cynicism comes from. But if you are the kind of company that takes its sense of self, not just from how you deal with good times, but how you deal with bad times, then you will get through these bad times. You will emerge triumphant. So let me give you your mantra to chant constantly with your people. Whining is not a strategy. Victim is not a job description. And everyone else is in trouble too is not management information. And by the way, to this last point, don't hang out with the losers. Don't let your people do this. Companies that are in trouble and stay in trouble, they always hang out with the losers. They basically, the conversation around the water cooler is, you think, we suck. Look at these guys. Don't do that. Look at the companies in every industry, not just your own, that despite tough times are continuing to improve their performance. Learn from them. Take those lessons from them. Next is reject equations of denial. Here's my favorite equation of denial. In 2009, Stuart Parnell's company, the Peanut Corporation of America, was accused by the government of poisoning consumers because the plants that manufactured the peanut butter had such bad sanitation they actually found rat droppings in the peanut butter. And so they were causing salmonella and anaphylaxis in people they were killing. They killed 9 people. And this horrified their wholesale customers, who immediately stopped ordering, and then consumers started to look for that PCA label, and they wouldn't buy anything with them. The government insisted that they clean up those plants. They were killing people, and they refused. And so the government ordered a shutdown of the plants until they could clean them up, and they refused. And so the government came in again and just shut them down permanently. And this was the press release from Peanut Corporation of America said this. Repeated plant closings have forced us to declare bankruptcy, okay? That's an equation of denial. You want the full equation of accountability, it would have been this. So clean plants plus rat droppings and peanut butter multiplied by customer deaths plus projectile vomiting minus consumer reputation plus government investigation, loss of wholesale customers plus repeated plant closings equals bankruptcy. Don't let this happen in your business. Insist on this with yourself and to your people. Only one equation at any given time to explain the circumstances you're in, good or bad. This is what we did or didn't do equals this is what happened. You own it, live with that. 3, raise the bar. It's dangerous business thinking, old business thinking, to think that value alone will make you successful. That's the way business used to think. The better our value proposition, the more successful we're going to be. In this day and age of massive customer buying choices and immediately shared feedback, culture to culture, going to market based on value alone pretty much ensures you're going to commoditize your product and be locked in a margin-shredding competitive battle. The companies that will be successful in the future and will get through these tough times are the ones that don't just go to market based on value. They go to market based on value and relevance. And by relevance, I mean immaculate relevance to their customer, not just restating value. Most companies only choose to be relevant to their customers when they're trying to sell them something. And that's fine if you want to do that in your company. But there's an awful lot going on in your customer's world. And that would mean you're choosing to be irrelevant to them for most of the time. And that is a very dangerous business strategy. I am just stunned. I just pick one little example. I'm just stunned in 2008 when the economy really hit the fan, that a company like Walmart or Target, who depends on that customer and their money, didn't recognize that a lot of those people had lost their jobs. Well, it wasn't going to be that they permanently walked away from being employed. They were going to have to find jobs at some time. And if those companies that help people used their great resources as a job site, did job training, resume building, celebrated the success of anybody who was unemployed, and then went back on the job in signs in the stores, on their website, sooner or later when those people return to work, who do you think they're going to thank? Where is their loyalty going to go? But no, they were only relevant to you if they were trying to sell you something. Their message was the same. You can get this now, it's on sale. Do not let that happen in your business. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling B2B or B2C, you are still selling H to H. You are selling human to human. You don't sell to the enterprise, you sell to people representing the enterprise. All the same rules apply. Almost done here, about 3 more minutes. Next, don't plan strategies like bad kung fu films. Need I say more? Okay, who here has seen a bad kung fu film at any time in your life? You actually only need to see one. You're automatically pre-qualified to see them all because they're all the same. In every bad kung fu film, we have our hero, who's a simple, humble kind of guy. And except that he's a blazing kung fu master. He can kill you with a paper clip if he wants to, which is why he can be a simple, humble kind of guy. And he's a normal kind of guy, except for one strange twist in every bad kung fu film. There's only one thing that gets our hero's nose wide open, and that is he loves walking down dark, deserted roads in the middle of the night. Some people golf, it's just his thing. Invariably, in every bad kung fu movie, that dark, deserted road ends at the town square, which is also dark and deserted because it's the middle of the night. And invariably, in every bad kung fu film, as soon as our hero arrives at the dark, deserted town square, he's promptly jumped by 5 bad guys. Now, they are also blazing kung fu masters. Evidently, everybody in town is a blazing kung fu master. And our hero would be toast, and the movie would be over in 10 minutes, except for the strange etiquette found in every bad kung fu film, which is that only one of the bad guys goes after our hero at a time, while the rest wait docilely by until that guy is dispatched. It's like, my turn. They are 5 bad, dumb guys. And the companies that are enduring tough times that will not emerge triumphant plan their business the same way. You're going to think of a turnaround strategy. You're going to think of a hunker-down strategy to get through these tough times. And you're going to plan that strategy, and you're going to fund that strategy, and you're going to execute that strategy. And your competitors are just going to wait until you've done all of those things. And then they're going to say, oh, our turn. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Nope. Your competitors are in meeting, well, I mean, some of your competitors are sitting right here, but in general, the competition is always in meetings at the same time you are. And all the good work that you do to grow and protect your company and to navigate it through these uncertain times, well, that just deals you into the game. Now, you're in the big game. You're in the game with the most well-resourced, intelligent, aggressive players around. The question is, which company wins the game? And the company that wins the game is the first company that understands these 3 things. Number 1, you can't sell it outside if you can't sell it inside. Number 2, managers in a company, they'll never really work for their company until their company really works for them. And number 3, you must be branded for how and why you sell, not just what you sell. Number 5, look backwards. You know, you want to look forward to say what's going to happen to your company, what's going to happen to this industry. Maybe you're pretty sure that things are going to be okay. Maybe it's still a murky, uncertain road. We don't know everything that's going to happen in the world and how that's going to affect you. I wouldn't look forwards at all. I would take your time to look backwards. Because if you look backwards, 2 things are apparent. Number 1, these bad times will not last forever. Really, there's a cyclical history to the business. You do the right things, your fortunes will improve, you will survive. So number one, we know these bad times will not last forever. Number two, we know for certain that the story of how you stood up to them will. Now, you're going to be living with that story for a long time. It's time to start writing that story so it ends the way you want to. Now, I have 1 minute left, and I got two messages for you. One as an audience and one for you as managers. As an audience, I did what I could for you in 60 minutes. There's a PDF, about 20 pages. It's got some detail about what I talked about that the association is making available to you. It's on the app and on their website. So download the PDF. It'll talk about a lot of the stuff we talked about. It's a hell of a pithy read, if I do say so myself. I've written a couple of books. This is a new one. It's all about how an employee culture works and how to work it. Read that if you want to know about that kind of stuff. And also, if I can help you, my commitment to you goes beyond these 60 minutes. I really do the stuff I talked to you about today. My company does this for some of the most demanding, successful companies in the world of all sizes. So if I can help you, if you have a question, if you have a situation or a circumstance, go ahead and send me a note, and I will be happy to individually answer it for you. And so let me close this by saying that I'm asked all the time, if you could give just one urgent recommendation to any manager in any position, in any company, in any country, in any industry, but you could only tell them one thing, what is the one most urgent recommendation that you would give to anybody in a management position? And I love it when people turn my life's work into a game show, but I've had a chance to actually think about this. So let me leave you with my most urgent recommendation for you. For yourself, because it's your life that's at stake here. This time, the time you're spending in your business, you don't get this time back. Your life is happening to you right now. For your family, because the health of your family outside the job depends in large part on the health of your family inside the job. For your people, because it's not easy working in environments of constant uncertainty and pressure with regular reminders of how little control you have over your work life for someone who you only know as management. For your customers, because people don't trust companies, they trust people. For your company, because you're not a products company, not a services company. You're a human company selling products or services, and the pivot point upon which any strategic success rests is a discretionary effort of your human organizations. And finally, for the world, because let's face it, things are very weird out there right now. I'm not just talking economically. The world is a scary, uncertain place. There are entire parts of the world that are different today than they would have been if we were together 6 months ago. And we actually have every indication that things are going to get a whole lot weirder before they get any better. Now, what is it that all of the good people gathered here together today in this room can possibly do about the conditions that affect the world at large? Not much, except to extend our own humanity to the people that we are closest to, including the people that we see every day, including our employees and our customers. And so for all of those reasons, I urge you to be human first and a manager second. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you for attending this morning. The exhibit hall is open. Workshop sessions are already starting, so have a safe and productive day. This man gave you some new tools. Let's go out and use them. See you downstairs.